Constraints are allies, not chains, when one knows their purpose and selects them with intent. One boundary exposes invention and shows true strength. I will teach its shaping as practice and discipline. They force choice, reveal priorities, shorten passing doubts, and compel the testing of each plan. Do reframe limitation as a precise question, not an excuse, and name the single objective. List 3 constraints, name available means, set one strict deadline, and assign responsibility for swift trials. Once I led a small host against a well-supplied army and lacked stores for 2 weeks. I limited movement, shortened lines, sharpened signals, and forced the enemy into predictable paths. Through scarcity we found a single decisive crossing, rehearsed its timing, and struck where they were weak. Takeaway: a chosen limit turned uncertainty into an opportunity for a decisive blow and swift victory. Ask your captains to map constraints, test one narrow tactic, record observations, and report outcomes within 7 days. Make constraints routine, train in small limits until habit converts them into reliable advantage in every hard campaign. Set 3 experiment rules for your team, define clear success, and repeat these trials on a weekly rhythm. Do rotate constraints often, reward creative solutions openly, and record failures without blame as lessons for all. Typical error: treating limits as punishment. Avoid this by naming purpose, praising attempts, and protecting morale. You after 30 days will hold twice as many workable plans, measure by counting viable plans, and choose one constraint now, today. Limitations temper the will and sharpen the plan. A leader uses bounds to force clear priorities and decisive ends that become tests of character. When means are few, choice narrows, and action quickens, preventing scattered effort. This preserves strength, fosters discipline, and sustains the army's endurance. I will deliver a brief trial you can run at once. Remember that without constraint a plan withers. List every constraint and mark its true cost to strategy. Rank needs to a single decisive objective, and discard lesser aims. Allocate remaining strength and forbid further dispersal of scarce stores for a fortnight. Test one stream at once, refuse to divide intent across many fronts. You now squander options, you after 30 days command fewer, sharper choices. Once I marched with scarce grain and half the usual scouts. We probed paths at dusk, withdrew when the wind warned us, and learned. We mapped narrow trails and prepared ambushes where the ground favored us and saved men. Later, using those routes, we turned a stronger army's flank with few losses. Takeaway: a bound test conserved strength and revealed the decisive road. Do not equate motion with learning. Slow, measured returns teach better futures. Avoid widening trials before outcomes settle, lock the guardrails and enforce them. Record each day's choice to prevent easy return to wasteful habits and note the hour. Aim to cut wasted effort by 40% within 30 days of trial start. As promised, begin a 7-day trial now, choose one constraint and test it. I declare constraints the allies of a wise commander. One truth follows: boundaries force invention and discipline. Observe how limits narrow choices and sharpen your resolve. Identify limiting conditions, choose priority aims, trim surplus, rehearse responses. Once famine narrowed our stores, I rerouted routes and tools emerged. Takeaway: constraint revealed resource. Constraints expose character more than abundance ever does. I teach that limits become training for virtue and craft. Accept that prioritization yields clarity in decision and action. Ask honest questions, set hard constraints, cut low-value tasks, repeat tests. A regiment trimmed to essentials outperformed a larger but scattered host. Takeaway: size is useless without focus. Therefore a leader must convert hardship into method. Remember that boundaries temper resolve and reveal hidden strength. Do train under shortages, rotate roles, reward inventive frugality, and record outcomes. You after 30 days will see 30% fewer wasted efforts, and clearer plans. Once I constrain time and metal, the smith learned new temper. Takeaway: shorten a deadline today and record result. Limits uncover alternatives that abundance conceals. I instruct leaders to map constraints as maps to new tactics. Lean into narrowed options and force imagination wider. Draw constraint maps, convene frank councils, prototype low-cost experiments, then learn. A besieged camp mapped water limits and found hidden springs. Takeaway: map yield supply. Ritualize constraint, and discipline will follow the men. I counsel leaders to formalize constraint tests into daily practice. Make habit of trial until response becomes muscle memory. Set a daily constraint, review failures, adjust rules, celebrate frugality, document lessons. A unit practiced short rations and later endured famine. Takeaway: ritual builds endurance, avoid rigid pride, measure recovery within 7 days. Constraints are my allies, they sharpen decision where abundance dulls. I turn each limit into a deliberate practice and daily habit. Limits force choices, reveal faults, and accelerate learning among men. Define one immutable boundary for every mission this rotation. Record the expected trade-offs before action, then enforce them. Once I sent a small detachment to guard a bridge. They hid signals, spoke in codes, and reused every rope. Through careful bounds they moved unseen, and the enemy faltered. They taught these techniques aloud to neighboring posts. Takeaway: a hard limit breeds cunning and precise execution. Use constraints to practice priorities, not to punish slowness. List the 3 critical effects you must achieve under the limit with clear measures. Trim tasks that do not serve those effects, focus the rest. Rotate responsibility, let each officer master the constraint once. I review outcomes weekly and codify any elegant techniques found. Mistake: allowing workarounds that nullify the constraint's purpose. Avoid this by declaring acceptable exceptions before battle begins. Measure progress by the number of successful constraint trials weekly. Set a target of 4 verified adaptations each month. You now grieve reduced choice, you after 30 days wield narrowed power. Begin today, choose one rule, speak its purpose, bind your captains. Enforcement holds until 3 outcomes show improvement. I report the results at the moon's end and praise craft openly. If the results fail, adjust the bound, not the will of men. I will next teach how to celebrate constraints as honorable rights and laws. I declare, limits are the truest allies of leadership. Turn constraint into strategy, shape choice within bounds. Accept that constraint compels focus and discards excess. Name the constraint, map its reach, set a single priority, enforce a working hush. You now hold fewer options and wield greater clarity. Use scarcity to sharpen method rather than excuse stasis. I train men and plans through constrained drills and tallies, soon you scale this. Run short trials, count results, cut what weakens, repeat with variance. Typical errors: sheltering old habits, and fleeing pressure into chatter. Measure by 3 metrics, tasks completed, failures halted, and time saved, measured in 30 days. I once ordered tight rationing during a long siege, calling for craft. Officers complained, yet each trial taught a sharper way to move stores. Within a month we used less and struck truer, surprising the enemy. Takeaway: scarcity breeds craft when leaders insist on testing, not on lament. As I promised earlier, end your complaint, name one constraint now and set its boundary. Limits sculpt a leader's steadiness more than praise ever will. I temper resolve by choosing hardships that test honor and judgment. Select one testing rule, require daily witness reports, punish avoidance, reward measured boldness. Avoid vanity trials and needless cruelty, measure by 3 faithful testimonies fortnightly. These practices belong to counsel and custom. I order calendars of limits and rights that teach restraint. Mandate weekly reviews, publish failures without shame, rotate burdens, reward disciplined persistence. Begin tonight, choose one ritual, convene witnesses, note the change by 7 nights. Constraints are not chains, they are allies in war and governance, if wielded by a disciplined mind and hand. Embrace limits, compel invention, refine practice, and reveal your command to loyal men. When options shrink, leaders sharpen focus, discard the needless, and learn to choose decisive aims without delay. I will give a 1-month test to prove this, so you may now judge the lesson by numbers. List one boundary that binds your team this week and declare it plainly to every member. Once I led a small band bound by scarcity of grain, scouts, and a harsh season. I forbade the usual foraging, ordered strict rotation of watch, and rationed every bowl without mercy. We struck at dawn upon an exposed flank we had mapped from memory, taking the enemy unready. I kept careful logs of march, casualties, and spoils to judge each command. Takeaway: scarcity taught patience, speed, and the art of hidden advantage when I restrained pride and hubris. Set a short trial, choose 3 constraints to test this month and record your expectations in writing. Measure output before and after, count tasks completed and hours saved, and note that many leaders mistake austerity for punishment. Avoid this error by explaining purpose openly and rotating burdens fairly among all your officers. You now feel constrained. You after 30 days will find sharper plans, fewer idle debates, and clearer priorities. Begin today, choose one constraint, announce it plainly, record results daily, and review after 30 dawns with counsel. I declare, constraints are allies, not shackles. As I promised earlier, I now show how limits become engines. One sentence: limitations reveal the shape of possible triumph. They force clarity, focus, and ruthless selection of means. Avoidance breeds waste, embrace forms discipline and inventiveness. Do set a narrow, measurable goal, and bind limited means to it. Limit effort to short spans, and demand decisive review. Limit tools, reduce options, and require solutions with present means. Assign single ownership, shorten reporting, and fix clear success criteria. You after 30 days will show double the tried solutions within bounds. Once I had 300 men and a narrow mountain pass. I ordered simple traps, few scouts, and 1 bold feint at dusk. The enemy, vast and confident, misread my economy and divided his host. We struck with purpose, limits had shaped every action we took. Takeaway: small constraint, precise plans, and courage yield disproportionate victory. Do not make limits into punishments or excuses for inaction. Avoid vague guardrails, name the unacceptable, and enforce clear trade-offs. Measure progress by trials per week and percent meeting constraints. Begin now, choose one undertaking, have its means, and run a fortnight test. Soon I will teach how to scale these rules across larger campaigns. Formalize constraint into ritual to make the habit durable. Do codify a short ceremony where teams accept limits before commencing work. Hold swift debriefs, list lessons, and fold them into the next constraint. You now convert fleeting discipline into long practice, and culture follows. Chosen bounds reveal a leader's strength.